Beautiful, man. Want to get into the new album and the tour, and wanted to dig into your past a little bit, you coming into the band. But initially, I wanted to start with the semantics kind of. There's two Jacks in your band. When you go, hey, Jack, at band practice or on the road or whatever, do they both look? Do you have a nickname for one of them? How do you separate the two Jacks?
Um, it's not so interesting. We say JC and JU, just their
Ah,
initials. But
initial.
sometimes depending on the context, even if you don't say that, if you just say Jack, depending on what the sentence is, the right one will look.
They just know instinctively who you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah, depending on what the tone of it is, I guess. Yeah.
So much was made about the band coming out of Berkeley College and formed there, and you're kind of like the last man into the band. So I was kind of curious about your story in joining the band. Are you from Berkeley out there, or more Orange County where they are now? Talk to me about getting the gig.
Sure, yeah. I was in college with the guys when the band started, and
Oh,
I wasn't in the band during college at all, but I did sub in pretty frequently on either guitar or bass. I'm actually a guitar player at heart and before
ah,
joining this band. So when either Jack or Nick, who was the old bass player, who's one of my closest friends, we talk all the time, when either one of them couldn't make a show, I was kind of the bench warmer for the band's for like the first 5 or maybe 6 years of the band's career. Um, and so yeah, when I moved out to California at the same time they did, that's what you do when you graduate music school. You go to California. That's part of the curriculum.
right.
Um,
New York or
and
California.
exactly. Or Nashville, I guess nowadays. But yeah, I was out there at the same time they were for like uh, maybe 2 to 3 years before joining, and during that time too, I subbed in California. And then yeah, in mid 2019, Nick, just for a number of reasons, decided his time was done, and I then shortly after that was the first tour with Bad Flower, which we've done three of now. But that first one was kind of like my audition, I guess, like unofficially for being in the band full time, because I had never, all the times I had substituted, it was just one-off shows, never toured. So that one was, so I wasn't in the band at that point, but I was, I guess, the go-to to do that tour. And then once that was over, it felt really good, and the guys invited me in officially. So that's the story there.
Beautiful. Now you moved out to LA, part of the curriculum, as you said. But did you have your own music going? Is that put on hold then, or do you still have aspirations for your own stuff, or just DPS full time bass player?
Deep DPS is my life right now. I mean, I to answer your question, the first few years of California, I was playing guitar for a handful of different bands, and also like doing the hired gun thing for a few pop artists, which I still have aspirations to do. I do, playing guitar is still something that is very kind of part of my identity. So we're very, as you might have seen, as far as what goes on with this band, we've been nonstop the last few years. So it hasn't been any time for me to explore anything else, which is fine. I'm not complaining about it. But definitely, as soon as there is an opportunity to play guitar for whoever, whenever, wherever, um, um, you know, I'll say yes if this comes first, of
Sure.
course. But yeah.
Beautiful, man. Well, I wanted to dig into the album a little bit. I was fortunate enough to go out to that really cool album release party you guys had in LA at the Pico
Oh,
U
cool.
Project, which was super cool to be in like a church and drinking beer and playing music. And just to nerd out for 1 second, because I'm an Orange County guy, the station's in the Inland Empire, but a lot of friends and family in Orange County. And I noticed you guys had Asylum Brewing that night. Are you guys friends with them, or did someone get the beer, or was there any
Oh,
sort of beer
yes.
connection?
That was Rock Night Out who organized that event. I believe that's their connection. And yeah,
Ah,
I'm not a drinker, so I'm probably the last person to be able to comment on this. But I liked the names they gave the drinks, and they looked cool. And I think that's all I can say, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it. Had a good time. Was hanging out with some of your label mates, Dan and the other guitar player, Travis from Atreyu were hanging out that night as well. Some label people there
Yeah,
and stuff. So it was a really cool night and great to hear some of the new songs off the new album. And kind of curious, man, because there was quite a few years in between album number one and album number two, and the whole pandemic and everything. Uh, Obviously you guys were working on this for a while. What are some of the early songs on the album, like that you had worked on for a long time versus maybe some older ones that came in last minute?
sure. Running in Circles was very early on, as was Uto. Um, and Hurt, and I Hope You Hate Me. Um, Definitely the first two I mentioned though. I think those stick in my mind as like the earliest point where it felt like, oh, okay, these are songs that are no longer just demos or ideas, and they are full tracks that will likely become part of this album. Um, what actually even dates before any of that is My Condition, which that song started before I was in the band.
Oh, wow.
They wrote that main verse riff as well as the verse melody, I think like 5 years ago. So
Wow.
probably like close. Like I've been in the band for just under 5 years now officially. So a few months or so probably before I entered is when that riff was conceived and that melody was conceived,
Huh.
and didn't make it onto album one, and just was, I think, like a lot of times, just a kind of fraction of a song that was
Not complete.
existent until it was built upon, and that happened uh kind of in the middle to maybe 3/4 of the way through this album being finished is when that riff was revived, I guess, and built upon. And yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And with all that time, I always wonder too, like, how do you know when a song is done? Like, how do you when do you stop tweaking on it and just kind of leave it be with all that extra time with a few years?
Well, that's a curse, and I think especially for us in this band, we are obsessives, and we are tinkerers, and second guess a lot of things, and third guess and fourth guess a lot of things. And there comes a point where something is, you've spent so much time on it, um, that you just gotta say this is done. This is done. This is like going any further into this will either make it worse or just different but not better.
Right.
And I wish I had an easier answer for the I don't know, I guess the
Formula.
tried and true yeah, formula or method for saying that's finished, but we struggle with that a lot. Going and changing lyrics and little kick drums here and guitar lines here, and it can be kind of mind numbing. So, but I would imagine that's something. I think, musicians are musicians, and that sort of thing, I think, is probably par for the course. I I'd imagine.
Yeah, man, I'm really loving the album. I didn't think you could top the first one, but somehow you did. And
Mm.
I don't know if it's necessarily a mission statement, but I feel like this album is a little bit more dancey, a little bit more groovy as compared to album number one. Was that a conscious decision or
Cool.
just kind of shake out that way?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm glad you love it. Or I think you said you love it.
Yeah,
I'm glad you like it
absolutely.
more than the last one, it sounds like. Um, no, I don't think that there's ever any mission statement for we want to improve always. We want
Sure.
this to be better than the last and the next to be better than this. So that's, I guess, as concrete of a mission statement as there ever is, but there's never like a we want to make this album sound XYZ. It's kind of just the song becomes a song. We all feel good about it, and then the next song might sound completely different than the one before it.
Look, it seems like too a little bit more electronics used in this one, and almost kind of using Jack U's voice as an instrument, and almost sampling that at times, and using that kind of as a backing track.
Yeah, definitely. I think that production electronic stuff is definitely was more prevalent this time around. It's fun, just introducing new things, and as far as like what technology has to offer nowadays, it's an infinite wormhole that you can fall down very easily in a good way. Um, but yeah, definitely this album compared to the last one has a more, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's got more electronic elements to it, which the next one might as well, and it might not. Who knows?
Lots of different bass sounds for you too. I mean, a lot of different tones, clean, dirty, almost disco-y at times. Like you really tweak those sounds as well.
Yeah, we had fun with it. The one I feel most proud of is "Hard to Be God," which when you listen to the
Yeah,
song, you wouldn't know, but the entire song is bass.
really.
All of it. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's some high guitar lines, like kind of stuff, but all of the like rhythm
Uh-huh.
guitars that you hear, that's all bass. It's just processed and layered and like pitch shifted and everything. And so,
Wow.
and you wouldn't know that. And we're not the first to do that. You know, there's
Right.
other bands that I'm sure you're already thinking of, but we've never done that before, and that's the only song on this whole album that is that way. And we've been opening up the set on this tour with that song, and so I get to come out and just kind of like showcase that. Hey, I'm doing an interview. Here's Will. Say hi. Hold on, he's grabbing something.
Uh-oh.
This is Will. He plays drums in the band. Yeah.
Left hand.
Okay, bye. Sorry, we're outside a venue right now, just getting ready to sound check. But yeah, we start the set with that song, and they come out and kind of just make some crazy noises with that bass tone, or at least the best way we have recreated in a live setting that bass tone. Um, and it's on a fretless bass too, so it's fun. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's probably my favorite song on the album.
Oh
And
no way.
yeah, that one. And I was gonna also mention I almost feel like they're related or sister songs, KOET, which I'm not
Yeah.
sure is like your own radio
We
station or
pronounce
something, or
sure, that's you just planted a seed. Coet, it's called Coet.
oh wait.
But yeah, you're right. Those are very similar songs, vibe wise. I would also put them in the same wheelhouse as some of our older ones, Swarm and maybe even Salt. The very kind of grindy, slidey,
Yeah.
industrial sound that we tap into here and there.
Yeah. Speaking of that industrial sound, the opening track is too, but 5:29:45. Is that how we say that one?
You got it. You got it.
Where do these song titles come from? I mean, that's such a lame question, something I don't ever get into, but I was hoping that some of them would make more sense along the way, like UTO, like urinary
Yeah.
obstruction. I don't know what's going on there.
I have been instructed to not give this stuff away. So I'm gonna keep it at that, but you can Google things and you can read, you know, comment threads and stuff, and you'll maybe you'll find the answer to that. But we like to, I don't know, a lot of it can be open to determination. There's no clear answer necessarily for any of them either. You know, we like having things up for interpretation as well. So I hope that answer is okay.
Well, I beat you up enough about the album. Let's get into the tour, man, and the show. Two SoCal shows going back to the Troubadour. Saw you there in the fall, and then the Observatory back home, Constellation Room. Saw you there about a year ago. There.
Oh, well, thank you for coming to so many shows. That's awesome.
Yeah, and just to brag, I was even at the Valley Bar last year where you guys premiered the Running in Circles for the first time.
Oh wow,
You did.
that was Phoenix, right? Yeah,
Yeah, drove out to that
cool.
one. But
Yeah, thank you.
any tour support on this one, or is it just local openers?
No, we broke it up into four sections with four different openers. We're currently on the fourth and final. We started the tour off having a band called Sunfish from Salt Lake. They did a handful of shows with us, and then we had Silly Goose, who are a bit they're have you heard of that band before?
I've not.
Um, they're cool, man. They got there and hold on, sorry. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, gotcha.
Silly Goose has made a name for they kind of hijack other people's tours by playing in the parking lot
Ah,
when the venue's clearing out. And they did that when we were touring with Highly Suspect last winter. They did that every single show at the end of the night. People clearing out of the venue, and there was a encore concert. Basically, they turned this giant box car into a stage, and they would play two or three songs before they would inevitably get shut down by the cops every night. And they are awesome. And so we we're lucky enough to bring them out as our second opener for at least the second portion of this tour. Then we had Post Profit, who are also sick. We shared the bill with them when we toured with Nothing More last fall. And then finally now we just began the actually they have the biggest portion. It's a band called Andreas, who Dead Poet Society, who before I was in the band went on tour with many years ago. DPS opened for Andreas.
Ah,
Um and so there's a lot of history there. And they're awesome. And this will be the second or third show with them. So we're just beginning that. And it's been cool having different openers because like, just hanging out with new people and hearing new music. It would be awesome to have all four of those bands with us the whole time, but that isn't possible.
so Andreas will be opening the SoCal shows.
Right.
And then tour wise, set list for you guys, is it pretty much playing the Fission album in full, or are you mixing, is it kind of 50-50 the first and the second?
It's 60-40 Fission versus Prior. Um, we have some at least one or two from long ago, and then some of our favorites from the first album. But I think the majority, I haven't broken it down, but I do think the majority of the show is the new album,
Beautiful.
which has gone well. People don't seem to be complaining, I hope.
Going back for 1 second to that first time in Valley Bar and playing Running in Circles. First time I heard it, I was like, well, that sounds like a brand new song and that sounds like a hit. Did you have any inkling when first writing that song? Did it sound like, oh, this is a song that's gonna have some legs for us?
Uh, Thank you, firstly, and yeah, I did personally. I That was one, again. It was like the first or second full song that was written, and it just felt great. It felt like, yeah, this is we're hitting the ground running with this one. So yeah.
I love the tune after that, Hurt, which kind of seems to be autobiographical about you guys and what you do and what you're doing right now, go in a van, traveling around the country, and the pain for the pleasure of playing every night.
You nailed it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you, man. I'm glad that you clearly have listened to these songs more than a few times, and um yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
And dude, that part at the end though too of Hurt. I imagine that's your favorite part of the set. You said hard to be a god, but I would imagine the end of Hurt is pretty fun to play too.
That's up there. Yeah. That's when the pit, if there hasn't been a pit already, that's when the pit starts. And I do want to give credit to we had two producers on this album, one of which is Benjamin Rice, and he was the one that um really kind of souped up that ending. We had that riff on its own, and then the drum beat was kind of more just your standard, like just kind of heavy breakdown beat. But then Ben, between he and Will, when we were in the studio, like this happened day of. This wasn't predetermined. Like
Wow.
this was while the drums were being recorded. He was like, what if we did something crazier here? And between the two of them, it turned into what you hear there. And it was kind of our, a few of us. I like techie music. I like Animals and as leaders and Periphery and Polyphia and stuff. So not that section. I'm not comparing that to those bands because they're kind of in a different realm than us, technically speaking. But that in that day in the studio when that came up, it was kind of like, oh, cool. We made like a cool, like nerdy, like heavy music section. So
Yeah, see,
yeah.
that's funny. Because I did feel, I guessed it came from you, but I was wrong. Actually, it came from Will and the producer. But because you look like
Yeah.
you're having the time of your life when you're playing that part live, like just getting down.
Oh, well, I try. Thank you.
Dude, I appreciate all the time. Last thing I got to hit you with, Dylan, and it kind of goes along with what you were just talking about, being a metal fan, animals as leaders, and all that. We're an old school radio station. We do a feature called Mandatory Metallica, which you're going to be a part of every night at 10
Okay.
o'clock. Are you a Metallica fan?
I I love Metallica. I
Okay.
think most rock musicians love Metallica, but I would embarrass myself if I was tested on anything Metallica. So I'm afraid of what you're about to ask me.
Well, normally I have a little Metallica debate, but I wanted to kind of
Okay.
test the waters with the Metallica fandom.
All
But
right, let's see.
let's see.
Go for it.
Let's see how this plays out. It's real simple. It's kind of getting into their thrashier, their heavier albums, their old school albums. Album 2 versus album 3, Ride the Lightning versus Master of Puppets. If you had to pick one out of those two.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. I'm going to be talking out of my ass right now because I know songs from both, but I'm not a big enough fan, and I'm like cringing as I'm admitting this right now. But I would not be able to give you, I wouldn't be able to give you like a reliable answer on which of those two albums I would choose. And I am sorry to anyone listening and deciding they're no longer a fan of our band.
Is there anything Metallica that sticks out? Do you remember getting an album, any album, or any cassette, or really a song or anything that jumps out to you when you think Metallica? Is
I-
there anything to chew on?
Actually, well, yeah, I mean, of course, the classics, like obviously those come up, but interestingly, maybe, I didn't get into heavier music at all until like 12th grade, which for me was 2012. And it was maybe around that time, like a year before that, that Death Magnetic came out, which I
Right,
understand is not at all like a heavily referenced album for that band.
right,
But I
right.
remember because I was just getting into heavy music when that album came out. And that was weirdly my introduction to Metallica. Like, of course, I had known Master of Puppets. Of course, I had known Enter Sandman, all those legendary songs. But that's the first time I ever like, oh, let me listen to this full album. That was it. So, uh, again, probably weird and not a favorable answer, but
Any of those
there you go.
any of those songs stand out to you? Any favorite song we can play for you on Mandatory Metallica, either off of that album or any of the classics?
Oh God, um, I feel so embarrassed right now, man. Um, just play Seek and Destroy.
There you go. Old school. Back to the first
Yeah,
album.
yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for the time. Can't wait to see you in SoCal again. And I'm not sure which one I'll be at, the Troubadour or the Observatory, but I'll be at one of them for sure. And hopefully I get
Okay,
to say hi to you.
awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Dylan. Have a safe travels, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.